Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Pay Can't Part. Whoa, I'm gonna repeat stop that
Yeah,
again.
let's
Let's do
try
that.
that again.
Let's do that again. Um, Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Pancake Parlay episode 43. I'm your host, the Don, and I'm here with Chatters. How are you today, you beautiful gentlemen?
Yeah, I'm pretty good, Don. How are you?
I am pretty good, enthusiastic as you can see. So yeah, this week we're going to be reviewing kind of like Sabrina. Well, the Curious Case of Sabrina, or no, it's Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. I'm getting it like confused with Curious Case of Benjamin Button. So we're going to do that. We're going to review some Slender Man because Halloween and everything, and some gaming stuff with Dragon Quest. But first, what I want to touch on, but what I've been watching is Tom Clancy's Jack Ryan, the TV show. This TV show I think has been in development for like a year and a half, 2 years, because I remember like seeing the first trailer of it like a year ago, and for some reason it's taken this long for it to come out. So this is an Amazon series. And they're really pushing hard with Amazon. Like they've got some pretty good TV stuff out there. So they definitely want to compete with Netflix. And especially getting the Tom Clancy brand is probably pretty much a big get. So Jack Ryan is a well-known character in the Tom Clancy books and novels, like things like The Hunt for Red October and things like that. That's got the Jack Ryan character in it. And obviously been played by multiple characters. So he's basically he's like the James Bond in a sense. But like he's not a secret agent. In a sense, he's a CIA analyst in this TV show. And basically, this is kind of his origins, I suppose, in getting into the field, where he's getting to the field agents, and it's dealing with, I guess, some terrorist organizations, kind of in the Middle East, and kind of dealing with that and things like that. So, like, this show is pretty solid. It's only 8 episodes, and I feel like it is, like, basically cinema quality, this show. It's got this really good cinematic feel to it. Which you don't really see that many. Like, you see some few TV shows have it, but most of the time, they don't have that cinematic feel. So I feel like Tom Clancy's Jack Ryan is a pretty good TV show. It's 8 episodes, and I say everyone should give it a watch because the action's good and the acting is superb. You've got the the guy from The Office, and he did The Quiet Place. John Krasinski, I think that's his
John
name.
Krasinski. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and you wouldn't see him as like the guy who's taking down terrorists and things like that. But surprisingly, it works really well for his character and his acting. Yeah, have you seen or know much about Jack Ryan or anything like that?
Well, the first thing I'll comment on is I would have said the same thing about John Krasinski as well until I saw A Quiet Place, right? He definitely does play a very like macho, very confident, very like manly dude in that particular movie. So I can definitely now imagine him as being a spy. As for Jack Ryan, I've seen The Hunt for Red October, and I have seen a few other Tom Clancy films. I couldn't probably lift them off my head, but yeah, it's interesting to hear that from you that there are multiple people who've played Jack Ryan kind of in a James Bond-esque way. Is he always a CIA analyst in his roles?
I'm not quite sure. I'm assuming he is, but like I think because that's the thing. I think the Tom Clancy novels, I think it's like a through line that he's a kind of a character that kind of seems to be popped up in a lot of these situations. So I'm assuming
Okay.
he is, but once again, I haven't read any of the novels, and I feel like all the adaptations that there ever been with Tom Clancy stuff, they've just kind of brushed past that because they're just like, yeah, he's some guy who does some crazy shit, you know?
Yeah, yeah. He's Mr. Two First Names, and he's gonna just be caught in the middle of something like some kind of military Jackie Chan who just happens to be somewhere where shit goes down, right?
Yeah. Well, that's the
Um,
thing.
it,
It's like it builds it really well in this show because I think this is kind of his first like they kind of think they kind of test that this is kind of his first outing as like a because he's just an analyst who just like he's never in the ground. So this is like him actually finally getting some action, finally see what his training is all about, and it's like, yeah, it's really good because you see the development of the character rather than him being just overpowered at the start. Mixing that with he's got a love interest, which is played by Abby Cornish, and she's just kind of a scientist as well, and she helps out. Because the basic plot of it is, obviously, like, I don't want to spoil too much or get into the specifics, but there's a terrorist organization. They're planning these terrorist attacks, and they're trying to figure out, where this guy's compound is, what's the next plan of attack, where is he going to strike next, and there's a lot of movement with that. But on the flip side, it actually shows I guess the main terrorist guy's family. You see his wife as well as the two kids that she has, and basically there's a lot of tension between them. And then it's pretty early on in the series, but the wife and the kids, I guess, leave the father and try to escape the Middle East, and for immunity for the information that they give. So it's kind of a back and forth of because one of the kids actually does stay back. So then there's a lot of push and pull of like, you can't bomb this place. We gotta infiltrate. We gotta find out where these guys are and do it that kind of way. So there's a lot of investigating going on. There's a lot of, I guess, like seeing both sides of the argument, things like that. But yeah, I really enjoyed the show. Once again, it's 8 episodes and it flies by really quickly because I don't see many shows that do just solid 8 episodes. And it's got this good cinematic feel. I hope I don't have to wait too long for it, for a season 2. But I feel like Amazon has a good hit on their hands. Once again, I still feel like Amazon is one of those players that you gotta wait for because they've got like already a few pretty good shows out there already. But not only that, but once again, they bought a lot. They're doing the Wheel of Time TV show, which is based off some fantasy novels, as well as once again they bought the Lord of the Ring license. They're adapting that into a TV show. So I feel like Amazon is taking strides to kind of really compete with Netflix in original content, which is really good to have good competition.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's a pretty good idea. I think I remember reading that, a lot of these original actors, like, whether they be like Netflix original, Amazon, Hulu, whatever they may be, they're making a lot of money, for their contracts and for some of the stuff that they do, especially compared to like, kind of typical, everyday cable TV, like, Stephen Amell in Arrow is making significantly less than, the main actress in Stranger Things, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, there's difference in the contracts and how much episodes they do and whatnot, but it just goes to show that it is kind of the way the future of entertainment is moving towards. Whether it'll be sustainable, I'm not as sure, just because, like, at the moment, like, I think I remember reading that, like, Netflix kind of operates at a bit of a loss. How legitimate that claim is, I'm not too sure. But at this stage, like, they do have to kind of throw money at people to make original content. Like, although Netflix is known for their original content, hence why a lot of other companies have to up their game with like what you said with Amazon acquiring Lord of the Rings and Wheel of Time as well. Is that what is? Am I correct in hearing that?
I think they're getting a lot of stuff, and like at least they're at least giving the chance to make original stuff and things like that, and that's why I find it's very interesting. Like, once again, as you were mentioning before, sustainable. I remember like I think it was like in the US maybe about 6 years ago. Everyone's like, oh yeah, we're gonna go through like Netflix and have this digital kind of stream that like we can get our original content, because in the US it was like you need to sign up for a cable company, and you got to do this, you got to do that, and you got to sign up for these different packages, and then like Netflix kind of like in these digital platforms kind of put it together. But now, since everyone's kind of caught on, like you can make a lot of money out of it. Everyone's doing their own streaming service. Netflix is doing it. CBS is doing it. Amazon and like even the DC network to the Disney network. They've got a lot of stuff where it's just like now it's all split again.
Yeah, and this is what I was saying. Like, like we have it over here in Australia as well. We have it with Foxtel, right? I'm not too sure how well Foxtel is doing now, but I'm fairly certain they're not doing from a streaming perspective as well as something like Netflix. Or Stan even. I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure about Stan, but Netflix definitely. But subsequently that has forced them to kind of try to compete, whereas before they had a bit of a monopoly here. I think now, like, it's just people maintaining their Foxtel accounts at this stage. But yeah, like, with what you were saying about making original content. I actually speaking of original content, did you see how they released Henry Cavill's appearance and how he's going to be looking in The Witcher?
Yeah, I saw that. He
What
look
what are your thoughts?
my daily take about Henry Cavill. Yeah, he once again, he looks like a Superman with a great gray hair and long hair. Like once again, I think I have to see like the actual performance itself, because I still look
Hmm.
at him and I'm still like, that's just Superman in a sense. Like, and I think the biggest point of contention for a lot of these like fans and things like that is the just there's no stubble, there's no beard. But I think a lot of people are used to that. I think from like Witcher 3, like I think like
Hmm.
Witcher 1 and like 2, if I remember correctly. I know 1 had it, where he just didn't have the beard or anything, and I think people were just used to the beard look to him. But if you look at like even just the Witcher game, from like Witcher 1, he doesn't have the beard. He's just clean shaven. Um,
Well, you see, I was gonna say like I saw it and I'm like, he doesn't look like he's had a lot of like
Battle
battle. Like
scars,
he
yeah.
doesn't. Yeah, that was my main concern. Like not necessarily having the beard. He can grow a beard. All right. Like if Stephen
I
Amell
know
could eventually grow a
they could
beard.
see they have to CGI it out for a lot of money, you know.
Yeah, I guess. Look, I mean, like I remember when Stephen Amell. This is probably a good comparison. Like when he started with Arrow, he didn't have a goatee, which is kind of like a signature thing to have like for Oliver Queen in the comics. And I think part of that reason was because in the new 52 release, where they kind of rebooted like several characters, Oliver Queen didn't was like clean shaven, very different, very extreme, right? And yeah, but over time during the seasons, he's like developed that goatee, and so it looks far more natural. Like another classic example would be Arthur Curry in as Aquaman. In the comics, like he always kind of has this period where he's going from being clean shaven to getting a full grown beard, and I don't know how the writers do it, like and kind of like the comic creators do it, but they always do it in like such a natural way that you kind of read those comics and you're like, wait, all of a sudden he's got a beard, like it's funny, but yeah, I think for me the thing with Henry Cavill as Geralt is that he doesn't look like he's battle hardened. He looks very much like he's very clean. And obviously this could just be like, yeah, they're just like an initial take. It's like, all right,
Well, that's
Henry's
yeah.
wearing the wig, and let's take a picture like as it is. By comparison, like if you saw like the releases of Ruby Rose's Batwoman, like gosh, she looks amazing as Batwoman.
Yeah, yeah, like yeah, I can see the definitely can see the comparisons, but like I feel like Witcher is like once again, it's still early on. I think they're still trying to do makeup tests and like things like that, so that's what they're trying to do now. But once again, the scars we'll definitely see, and like once again, like I like Henry Cavill's somewhat old, but like he doesn't have the actual old face as of yet. He still kind of has a very young face to him. But once again, I still like they can do a lot of things with makeup and special effects. Like this could be like when he finally gets kind of like the scar on his eye, like kind of a big gouge on there that might have an origin to it, or maybe like throughout like it was just once again just a random photo shoot. Like we'll do this quick to kind of gain interest and things like that. So like we'll definitely see. But so far, what I have seen is that the it has been relatively positive. Like no one's like, no, looks really crappy. Like it's not the same backlash as like the Titans got. But yeah, like
Mm.
it looks good. The only bad thing I could see is like it looks like Raiden from like the Mortal Kombat movies, but that's about it.
Okay, yeah, sure. I can kind of see where you're coming from there.
Yeah.
But speaking of kind of fantasy adventures, I've been playing Dragon Quest 11. Now this game technically has been out for the 3DS and the PlayStation 4 since 2017. But it's only recently has it come out on Windows, and I think it's going to be on the Switch as well. Not that I'm going to play it on my Switch. I have enough games on that thing that I still need to go through. But after the disappointment of barely getting through Mass Effect Andromeda, I thought, you know what, I need to switch it up. I need to switch it up from sci-fi, and I need to go back to something a little bit more, easy on the eyes, something that goes for stylistic graphics as opposed to shitty realistic graphics for a 2017 game.
Once again, remember the animation for the eyes and the ear. Like, oh yeah, you didn't get this, but you've seen it on YouTube, where you see the facial animations.
Oh yeah,
Where
yeah.
they
I
got
haven't seen any.
the weird bug eyes, and the mouth like lip syncing is really bad.
I mean, I got up to the point where I saw the backwards gun, so I mean, I think that's like a win. Like, I'm pretty sure,
That's when
like,
you know, like, okay, that's it for me.
I mean, that's what I found funny. I remember like seeing the video, like, compilation of like all the bad stuff in Andromeda, and it's like, there's obviously was the one where it's like the gun is backwards, but like their solution to that was literally putting like a barrel at the end of the handle to make it look like the front of a gun, but it's still technically the back of the gun, if that makes sense. It's just
It must
ridiculous.
have been some sort of weird physics thing that they couldn't fix, or else it would break so many other things. So they just like we'll just like put some like special effects around it to make it look like it's the other way around.
Yeah, well, it's literally like, how can we fix this for as little money as possible because we don't care about the franchise anymore, really.
Which is really
That's what I
sad.
kind of felt, which is really sad. I mean, like, just to kind of give, a little bit of an extended view for Mass Effect Andromeda, I think there was obviously a lot of potential for the game, but clearly they didn't invest the time, money, manpower, quality into developing it. Because, yeah, I mean, I think honestly, like, it's a really good idea, even if it was just like a one-off game. But clearly they didn't care about it enough, and maybe that's part of the reason why is because there is often this like back and forth that a lot of developers do where they focus on single player and then move away from it to something that's more multiplayer focused. We have EA developing Anthem, and that seems to be far more in line with what people want. Although, that being said, like, you look at Destiny when Destiny 2 in particular, it went from a lot of people loving it to them people saying, "Oh no, it's really bad too." I think like the latest update like really changed everything.
Mm. Well, no one. Well,
Something
that's the
like
thing. No one talks about Destiny. I think it's like
yeah,
especially
yeah.
Destiny 2. It's like it's fame, and like once again, Activision apparently paid so much money for this like whole franchise. Like it's kind of come and went. Like right
Mm-hmm.
now, like something that I want to play and everyone's talking about is Red Dead Redemption 2, and even before then, it was like the Spider-Man game. Like I feel
Mm-hmm.
like there's less demand for these always online open worlds where there's just loot boxes. Like like I feel like there's only a market for like one or two of those games throughout a particular time. Like you can't have continuously have these types of games, or else it would just kind of break the industry.
Well, maybe, yeah, like the ecosystem, right? Like they just kind of eat each other's like player base. I think you're not completely wrong with that analysis. I think the issue is that Destiny 2 just doesn't really seem like an appealing game. Like, to be fair, like the only reason that stopped me from playing the first Destiny was because I didn't have an Xbox One or a PlayStation 4. And I again, like, this, like, I've kind of transitioned to just being like an exclusively PC owner, although I have been playing stuff on my Switch. That's only because I got a really good deal for it. But yeah, like when it comes to and plus Nintendo has like significantly way better exclusives than, like you can't play Mario on anything
Because it's
else
Mario, man. Come on.
because it's Mario. Oh, I guess you can play that mobile game. Um, but like with something like Destiny, like Destiny seems to be definitely like the kind of game that I would have loved. Like it was Halo, but then it also had stuff like Borderlands because it's trying to be an MMO, like a Diablo-esque kind of roguelite-ish kind of thing.
Random loot, and you could have like a 0.5% chance to get the ultra rare item.
Yeah, and you can do raids, you can do with people. Like it's definitely borrowing a lot of the elements of MMO without obviously charging you the excessive fee of like whatever a month, like like WoW and stuff does. Although that being said, like you are already paying to play it online, and I think that's kind of part of the reason why I kind of stopped because like I remember paying for Xbox Live and just being like, I don't use it that much to justify it.
Hmm.
And that's a great thing about PC. Like generally the established kind of trend is that you provide servers if you want people to play your game. This is why
Especially on PC, yeah.
yeah, especially, well, that's what I'm saying. It's not something that's the norm on consoles because the players will pay the money for the servers. So if there was less people paying that and people will argue and say like, oh well, PlayStation Plus isn't just online service. You get all these games as well, but that's just like you're technically paying for those games, so they're not really free. Just putting it out there. But yeah, like I think like Destiny would have been right up my alley, but obviously because it didn't have a PC release, not really that
Oh,
interested.
yeah, I forgot about that. Like, there's just a lot of games that kind of dodge PC. Like, even Red Dead
Yeah,
has, but like once again, I feel like it'll be like GTA. Like,
well,
1 year, like away, it's probably gonna come out or something.
I mean that being, I played the original Red Dead. Although it's been a while, I probably should play it again. Maybe I should play it while I'm waiting for Red Dead Redemption 2 to come out on PC. Apparently there are you do have the original character in the second game because the second game is a prequel. It's kind of confusing in that way. It's actually really funny because in the first game, your character can't swim, because obviously like they didn't want to probably deal with swimming and stuff like that. And so the character when he reappears in the second game, he gets roasted by everyone for not knowing how to swim. So I kind of find that
Oh man,
hilarious.
I
That
love that stuff. Like, it reminds me of like what I think it's like Assassin's Creed 1 and like 2 up until like Brotherhood or something like that. Where just like, hey, the assassin can swim now. Like, I remember that was such a big point of contention.
right.
That was so
Hmm.
yeah. But yeah,
I
anyways.
think well, no, but I was gonna say like another really great one was I think in it was either in I think it was in Mass Effect 3 where at one point you can find some Omni Gel and Commander Shepard like says, I remember the good old days when you can just use Omnigel just to hack everything, and one of the other characters would be like, yeah, good thing they got rid of that particular like glitch in hacking because obviously they got rid of that particular bypass from the first game. Not that I ever used it. I
I
always
didn't even know it
hacked things.
existed.
Yeah, yeah. I think like you always had the option to either like hack things manually or pay some Omnigel to hack it. Not that I ever used. I always did all the mini games, but clearly they moved away from the mini game aspects to it. But then again, the Mass Effect 1 is definitely a much more different game than Mass Effect 2. But going back to what I was saying, like yeah, with Destiny, like and all these other kind of games, it's like you said, nobody really talks about them except within their own kind of niche, which obviously must be popular enough to garner that much, business and money to justify making and continuing to support it. But like, you compare it to PUBG, Fortnite, even with Call of Duty, Black Ops 4, I think, that's obviously getting a lot of people from the PUBG community because it's like PUBG, but actually not glitchy. So,
It's not semi broken.
yeah, exactly. But yeah, to kind of continue back to my original review of Dragon Quest 11, I haven't finished the game, but the game is very, very much like a traditional JRPG. I was kind of disappointed that I couldn't toggle Japanese voice actors, because the game obviously all the Dragon Quest the series has a visual look akin to Akira Toriyama, who is the creator of Dragon Ball Z. So all the characters like kind of look like people from that series because it's obviously his style. And so I kind of wanted to play the game with like Japanese voiceover, but apparently they don't release it, which is kind of disappointing, especially because by default I think the subtitles are enabled. But you know that's obviously not such a big deal. But otherwise, it's very much a traditional RPG. You play a kind of unnamed character, which obviously you can name, and he's a silent protagonist, and he kind of he's royalty of some kind. It's not really revealed to me at this stage what kind of royalty, but he's marked with this special tattoo thing, and it glowed during his ceremony that he had to climb up a
So he's
mountain.
the chosen one or something.
Yeah, he's literally the chosen one. Like, not even joking. He's like supposed to be the reincarnation of some hero, right? It's very much like
Old
supposed to
school
be
RPG, like start story point.
yeah. It's definitely like supposed to, and I'm not like I haven't played. This is actually my first Dragon Quest game. So, but from my understanding, like the previous Dragon Quest games like fall under a very similar kind of stock standard RPG, JRPG setting. Not that that's a bad thing, because if that's your bread and butter, like go for it, enjoy it. This game's like it's very different to kind of like the last kind of RPG games which I played, which were like usually like 2D focused, or like over bird's eye, over the top in terms of its 3D and movement. Like moving around, it's pretty cool. The graphics are really nice. Again, like since I got a new computer, everything looks amazing. And because again, this game isn't trying to blow your minds with how many polygons can it fit on a screen. It's more about focusing on the style and kind of looking like a 3D anime, right? In terms of its presentation of a game.
Well, they got that good cell shading,
Yeah, exactly. And I think obviously again, I'm much more I don't know about you, Don. I'm very much somebody who prefers style over, I guess, just how realistic something looks, right? Something I remember, like the original Borderlands game was originally supposed to look like a generic shooter until they decided, hey, why don't we just add some cell shading esque graphics to it and make it look unique. And because they did that, that's why it's got the unique look that it has, and why it's kind of iconic within the genre, and why people kind of want it to return. I'm waiting for a Borderlands 3.
It has to come out probably like next year, or at least be announced next year, because like once again, Gearbox hasn't done anything since like what, Alien, that really bad game.
Colonial Marines, yeah,
they pretty much haven't done anything, and they've kind of like kept on supporting what is it, Borderlands 2 and everything. And they've done it like, I think they've done like small things. They had that Battleborn. That was their
oh yeah, I think
clone that no one liked and was like
unfortunate. Yeah, it's unfortunate since like the game is technically not like Overwatch. Like it's very much supposed to be like their version of like an MMO. Sorry, a MOBA, right? Like a third person / first person MOBA. Which I'm never and probably will never like MOBAs, but during the time when MOBAs were popular, and well, they are still popular, just not as popular as something like Fortnite now, right? It's kind of like the cycle, like it's gone from StarCraft to MOBAs to like Fortnite, and then there's just and then look, I'm just saying like in between, Hearthstone, which I play a lot of, is usually at the top somewhere, depending on when you're watching it. But yeah, like so again, I like the style look, a preference. Although nothing looks better than really life, like life looking, I guess, realistic looking presentation of a game. Like I'm looking forward to seeing how Red Dead looks on my computer. If we can run it, I'm not sure. But
Yeah. Well, who knows? Who knows? Like they once
who
again,
knows?
they do a lot of crazy optimization and like, I think the game file itself is like what 100 gigs or something like that crazy.
Something like that. But yeah, so Dragon Quest, it looks amazing. From a battle perspective, like they do give the options of kind of having your traditional kind of like battle mode to what they kind of explain is like a free form camera option. And now this one's like given by default. And what it basically does is it allows your character to move around. And initially when I started playing, I'm like, oh, okay, so it's more like so it's trying to be kind of more like the newer kind of Final Fantasy games where like all the characters can move around and the enemies have to kind of be near you to hit you and stuff like that. No, it's got nothing to do with that. It's purely a visual look only. It doesn't provide any kind of in-game benefits or anything. So at that stage, I'm like, oh, all right, well then I'm just gonna go back to the traditional like turn-based RPG aspects of it. It was a little bit disappointing, but again, like I technically really like turn-based RPGs. My favorite RPG of all time is Chrono Trigger, an absolute classic. And yeah, and so like I was saying, like this game, it does have it does have like the generic kind of story, but I'm assuming as you're playing the game, you meet a lot of like unique characters. And yeah, I think the voice acting can be a little bit jarring, at least from the English translation, but you can kind of overlook that if
Is
you're
it
not
very like JRPG like where it's like the translation of it's like a little bit off where you're like that sounds weird?
In a sense, but like I don't know. At the same time, like I think the like your best friend that you grow up with has like this really like British slash Cockney accent, and it's kind of like why doesn't anyone else at the village have a similar kind of accent as this chick? Like it really doesn't make any sense. It just seemed like they're very much like, oh, we just want this person to have a very iconic voice because she's like uh, look, I'm assuming it's supposed to be the main character's love interest in some capacity. So, it's just the thing. But yeah, as I said, like, you get into battles, it's going to be a turn-based RPG. If you like this kind of games, you're going to love this game.
Well, yeah, I feel
And
like like Dragon Quest is like a lot bigger in Japan, and Final Fantasy is more bigger internationally. And I feel like it's like
mhm,
Dragon Quest has kind of kept the, I guess, the feel of something Japanese, while like Final Fantasy is kind of more changed to like a Western type game,
audience, yeah.
RPG. Yeah, and it's like it's very traditional. I think like I've only played a few. I haven't played any of the recent ones, but from what I can still see is like Dragon Quest is very still a traditional kind of JRPGs from like that mid 90s like feel to it. It's still kind of kept that throughout the years. So yeah, if you're down for like insanely amount of like looting and like grinding, then I'm pretty sure it's one of those games.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely the like how you describe it. Like if you like RPGs, you like fighting slimes, you like have being a little bit nostalgic and playing something that's pretty simple, but it's good at what it does. I mean, Dragon Quest 11 definitely will get you there. So I recommend Dragon Quest, but it's still ongoing. This is an ongoing review, so maybe a couple of podcasts down the lines, I might be ranting about it, but we'll see.
Yeah, you'll be like, man, I spent so long just to freaking grind my characters, and they're like not even level 99 yet.
Yeah,
um,
exactly.
yeah. So yeah, that's what you've been doing. What I have actually been doing since it's was the season, because we're recording this after Halloween, is Halloween season, and then everyone likes their horror films, and I do like my horror films. So I was actually surprised to watch a horror film based off a video game, and that is Slender Man. So what is it like? What 2014, 13? Like when the Slender Man game came out, that was like an indie darling
Oh,
that everyone liked, and I think like
yeah. I
I
mean,
think once again, I think it changed everything because like I think it came out before Five Nights at Freddy's or all those games
yeah,
are.
yeah, yeah,
So like this
definitely.
was like the first one where it's like, hey, we're gonna do these like really like it's an indie horror game and we're gonna spook you pretty easily. And it could like it's
Um,
kind of
I,
procedurally generated sort of.
yeah, I was gonna say, I'm pretty sure like the original like Slender Man game like came out like 2011. like the game is quite old in terms of like the original game that kind of got popular by like let's players on like YouTube, such as like PewDiePie and his ilk, playing the game and getting scared by this creature that's following you. For any of our audience who aren't I guess well versed in in Slenderman, it's like a old kind of internet creepypasta, which is just kind of like a scary
even just saying the
story.
term creepypasta, man, like so
Ooh.
it's so inside it's so inside internet speak.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, well, I mean, unless you go on like websites like 4chan and the like you wouldn't know what exactly that is. But it's essentially just supposed to be people presenting like scary stories, and kind of having urban legends and stuff centered around things that are fictional, but you do it in such a way that's interesting. The Slender Man in particular, stalks children, and I remember people Photoshop shopping like the kind of faceless figure in a suit like behind like a playground and stuff like that, just to kind of creep out the audience, and who are either an account that someone had with the Slender Man, or just seeing like a image or something. And so essentially, someone made a game where you are essentially collecting notes, and you have to collect eight and escape. But at the same time, there is this the Slender Man is slowly chasing you, and you have to be careful and strategic in how you get these notes and escape. And at least that's the initial rendition of the Slender Man, in a mainstream, from a mainstream perspective of what most people got. I kind of find that like the Slender Man movie came like almost a decade too late. um,
Yeah.
but how was your kind of experience with Slender Man the movie?
Well, the movie's pretty damn bad. Like even if it wasn't
Okay.
based off anything that was like related to Slender Man, I feel like the construction of the film, as well as just the I guess premise of the film, is pretty bad. Like once again, the premise of the film is the same thing as like the video games, but the execution of it's pretty bad. Where it's like it centers around these bunch of girls who obviously they summon Slender Man because it's like a internet meme joke thing, and they're like, this isn't real, it's like the Biggie Smalls thing. It's kind of like that.
Mm.
And yeah, and then it kind of goes from there where it's like, oh yeah, this happens because like all these girls are missing and it's gonna happen to you, but like the it's just poorly acted. The I guess pacing of it's pretty weird. Like it goes to one extreme to the other, all the way to just like the frights aren't even that scary either. It's just kind of very dull. Like it just like even for horror movie standards, it's pretty dull. Like and that's the thing. It's like I just like I'm not that big of a fan of Slender Man, but I feel like this could have been done pretty easily, especially for a video game like adaptation for a film. But what I thought this film could have been is like they could have done a dramatic approach to the that news story that happened like a few years ago about
Hmm.
the teenage girls who kill.
Well,
Like I
yeah,
thought that's what the movie was gonna be.
I thought that's what this movie kind of borrowed some kind of inspiration of, because like you said, like it does center around a bunch of girls trying to summon Slender Man, and I thought because of how similar that was to that case where I think a bunch of girls I think bullied like another girl, in the Slender Man case and stuff like that. They like murdered like a girl, not to get too too dark on the podcast, but yeah, that's what happened. Like they murdered this their classmate, and kind of blamed it on Slender Man. Slender Man made us do it. Oh, it's spooky. Stuff like that. I thought that's what the movie was about.
Oh no,
But I guess not.
once again, I wish it was because I think like that would have given it a different approach of just kind of like it would have been kind of like maybe like a Jaws approach or even like the 2014 Godzilla thing where like if there is like a Slender Man, you only see Slender Man for a bit, but like Slender Man turns into
Mhm.
like this generic monster type of film. But
Right.
yeah, like
So
once again, yeah.
I was gonna say, do you actually see the Slender Man in his like fullness like several times during the movie.
Yeah,
'Cause I
quite a
feel
bit.
like
Like
that.
obviously it starts with the noise and everything and like kind of like foreshadowing everything. But like it once
Yeah,
again
that's a
it's
mistake.
yeah, it turns it into like the I guess like the awe of seeing Slender Man is just kind of lost within the film. It's like who cares? Like and it's just once again another generic monster, but like if they touted this thing where it's like these girls truly believe in this Slender Man thing, you would have kind of kept the mystery of Slender Man and being like, "Ooh, is it real? Is it not? Are they accidentally killing people and kind of had red herrings?" Like I don't know if you've
Mhm.
ever watched the film. I think it's called The Last Exorcism. That one also had
Yep.
like red herrings where it's like this kind of like priest who like does these exorcisms. It's actually like he reveals in this documentary that all these exorcisms were fake. And then he does like one more for the documentary, and it's kind of like
It's the
he's like
real one.
it's like is it real, is it fake, I don't know, like, and it's got a lot of like red herrings in the movie, and I feel like a lot of people should watch that film. And once again they could have done a really clever approach like that to this film, but instead it just turns into like it's a monster that you summon and stuff, so like we're gonna give you the monster, and so I don't know, it's just like I think Slender Man could have done better, and once again I feel like the property at this point is pretty much dead. So
Yeah,
like
it's a dead meme. It's a
yeah,
dead
like
meme.
that. Yeah, the movie's dead. Like the movie's bad and dead, but like the meme is dead. Maybe 20 years down the track, someone's gonna like try to remake Slender Man
No, no, no,
because
no, they
once again,
won't.
there's a lot of horror movie stuff that you'd think wouldn't get a remake, but they're remaking it. Like even I know
No,
like
it is.
yeah
This movie is dead in the water. Like I said, it people should have tried to make like somebody should have tried to make an indie film. Look, I literally talked about it a couple of podcasts ago. It Follows has the perfect formula for something like Slender Man. If they made Slender Man um basically with the same plot of It Follows, it significantly would be a better film. um, and but obviously they didn't. So that's the reason why it's obviously failed. But look, I know what you're saying, like as in maybe 20 years down the line, but I don't think people will remember Slender Man that fondly or nostalgically to be like, oh hey, remember Slender Man? Let's watch this movie.
well
It
yeah
no.
well that's it. It won't be the movie, but I feel like the property in of itself they'll try to do again. Like there's some like once again horror movies are one of those weird franchise type of things where like anything can get like a remake of something like like just random skill life, like even like the guy who directed Get Out, he's like, yeah, I want to do a Candyman remake. I'm like, what the hell's Candyman? It's like a
Yeah, I know
90s like
Candyman.
what horror film. I'm just like I've
Yeah.
never heard of this film, but someone's
Well,
remaking it.
well, I was going to say you mentioned earlier with Biggie Smalls, right?
Yeah.
Candyman is the original kind of well, from my understanding, it's supposed to be the original kind of version of that. Like, as in, you say Candyman into the mirror 3 times and he'll come out. And I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be before like Bloody Mary and stuff, but I could be wrong about that. But that's how I'm aware of what Candyman is. But
Yeah.
yes, it is definitely an older film. But I mean, there's a lot of remakes. So again, there's the Halloween remake, which I still have to see because I don't know, it looks kind of cool. I don't know if the reviews are any good for it
No,
though.
I've heard glowing reviews on it. Everyone's like,
Okay.
yeah, it's so much better than the what is it, the Rob Zombie remake and everything like that. Um, yeah, it's like once again, horror like Halloween is like the one kind of horror franchise that I haven't really delved too much time into, but like it's one of those things that I definitely want to put my time and money into franchise wise. It's probably one of
Mhm.
the only very few ones left because I've watched all the Child's Play, Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th. I've done all the Screams. Like I feel like this is the one that I need to kind of complete the whole collection in a sense. But yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
and overall, like Slenderman, just do not watch it. There's so much better horror movies out there. Once again, yeah, probably watch It Follows instead if you want something that kind of stalks you. I guess want that feeling. But anyways, speaking of occultist stuff and very creepy things, Netflix, which by the way is smart by they dropped Chilling Adventures of Sabrina during like Halloween weekend, which is actually like pretty cool how they actually did that.
hmm
So this is
Good
obvious.
timing.
yeah, good timing. It's like they're just like, nah, man, this is the perfect timing for this. So, this TV show is based off a comic, if I'm not correct. Mr. Archie Man over here.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, if you kind of look at the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, it borrows the name. The intro basically borrows a lot of the visual art and kind of cover arts of the Chilling Adventure of Sabrina comic book series. And yeah, the show does borrow elements of the comics. Now again, like there's only been I think I want to say like maybe 12 issues or so that have been released. But realistically they're only kind of like, if you were to transcribe them into episodes, they'd only really transcribe into like six. Um there's a lot of artistic kind of leeway with this particular show, but it does borrow a lot of elements, including some of the occulty, dark elements from the show. But yeah, like I haven't finished watching it, but you have, so I want to get some of your kind of fresh takes of the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I guess the main premise of the show is that on Sabrina's 16th birthday, she kind of has to choose between I think full like witch custody, or like she turns into kind of like like pretty much a full witch, or like has to do like witchy things. She needs to like study at the witch academy and things like that. But at the same time, she actually wants to stay with her friends and be more like a human. So that's kind of like the main internal struggle of kind of this TV show, and that's kind of like the overarching plot of it. And then obviously there's a few twists and turns here and there, and there's a lot of cool like things happening. But overall, like I feel like that this is okay. I feel like I think the tone they get really well done, where it's like it's they do horror things and they do some really weird stuff where like people die or like certain big serious stuff happens, but they're nonchalant about it. They're just like, it happens. Like Sabrina feels like she's not really so phased, kind of like that. And once again, these I guess the witches and the people who believe in the devil, these types of people, they're just like, it's whatever, it's fine. And like they touch upon it on one of the episodes. I think it's like episode 7 or 8, where there's kind of like a kind of ritual, where like certain people have to eat certain things. They're just like, nah, we don't want sacrifices anymore. And so it's kind of like the show is kind of like, look at all these old traditions that we kind of have. Is there a way to change it? Do I have freedom of choice in this, or do I have to stick to, I guess, the plan that someone's kind of set out for me? And that's kind of like the main struggle of the show. The characters themselves do a pretty solid job of doing, I guess, the characters. And once again, since they're based off like pulpy characters from comic books, they're in a sense like very two-dimensional, but they play them really well. Like Sabrina kind of has like, she wants to get advice from her aunties, but at the same time she wants to help her friends and do her own thing, so she's a little bit of a rebel that way. And so like the character portrayals, as far as I know, are pretty accurate, and they're I guess they're at least enjoyable to watch, like as characters, aside from like I would say a handful of characters that are mostly Sabrina's friends. I feel like Sabrina's friends kind of don't have much to do. They're very like, I am this talking point or I'm that talking point. Like the only person that really seems to get a little bit more playtime is Harvey, mainly because he does have a relationship with Sabrina, and then once again throughout later of the season, I think Harvey has more of a bigger role to play, and his relationship with Sabrina, especially I think got to do with his heritage and his his father and his grandfather and things like that, where it's kind of like the old Romeo and Juliet syndrome, I suppose.
Right. Well, you're saying like in terms of his connection to Sabrina in terms of like the occult and her being a witch,
Yeah.
not just because they're dating. Yeah, I get you, and I definitely kind of hear you. Like I kind of feel like in the show, like the old original Sabrina TV series kind of is just like a sitcom where where Sabrina goes to college, and she had the proms tomorrow, and she uses a spell, and the spell backfires, and she has to fix everything, and her aunt Zelda and Hilda tell her not to do it, but they all become friends in the end, right? This kind of show does aspects of that, where she's obviously kind of dealing with whatever crucible that she's dealing with. By the way, Crucible being a book about witches. But
Oh, the relationship.
I don't know. It's an okay book. Give it a read. But it kind of does its own kind of thing where like for example like episode 3 is like them dealing with uh Sabrina going on trial, and so she hires a mortal lawyer to help her deal with the court of quote unquote law, and but like the damned, and how he tries to help her get out of it. But there's obviously like in that sense it is kind of like a monster. No, I don't know how to really describe it. Like in a sitcom-esque way
Well, that's
where
the
they're
thing. It's like
dealing with a one-off.
I was gonna say like yeah, like you haven't watched the rest of it, but it does turn a little bit more into I guess monster of the week type of like time for like Buffy in a sense, where it's kind of
Yeah, Buffy.
like this episode we're gonna focus on this type of demon and how we're gonna
Mhm.
track it down, and I feel like that aspect of it is actually pretty good because there's some interesting stuff that happens throughout later in the season where like for example there's a dream demon and they have to deal with that, and like it has this really cool like they can do these really cool visual effect things and things like that, and there's a few other demons like that, but like I feel like
Right.
that stuff is really strong, especially the world building stuff is really strong, being like these are witches, or what's this ritual like, or why do we need to do this. Like I feel like that stuff is really good. It
Mhm.
just doesn't, for me, it doesn't come out coherently where it doesn't feel like a fully built world. In a sense of like these characters, they still feel like they're there for the sake of being there for this plot point or that plot point. And I
Sure.
think that's kind of like my main negative thing, where I don't feel like it's as glued together as a world as much. And I think that really comes back to the negativity of the overarching story. I feel like is pretty weak, and like these character
Okay.
motivations. But once again, when it comes to these monster of the week type of things, I feel like that's when it's actually at its strongest. So I don't know if they're gonna season 2 they're gonna make it a little bit more formulaic in a sense where they're gonna have monster of the week and kind of have this like overarching story at the end. Um, but it seems to kind of progress in that particular way where like there's an overarching story. I don't know how long this thing's gonna go. It could be like one of those 8 season things where it just like the main bad guys, it never really ends.
Mhm. Well, I was gonna say, with something like the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, like obviously it's borrowing aspects of what's happening in the show from the comics. The comic again is only 12 issues. It will probably continue to kind of be its own thing, kind of like how Riverdale, the TV show, was kind of inspired by the release of like a new version of Archie comics. That's more modern and less supposed to be like a 1940s kind of world, where the original ones are based off. Yeah, I look forward to seeing the rest of the episodes. Again, there is kind of like a void that is empty of having these kind of Buffy-esque shows, and if I can get it from Netflix, like why not? I think the market is there, and like I always say on this show, Netflix knows, based on people's watch history, what they should probably try and make to some capacity, and so Sabrina probably hits enough bullseyes to justify making the show. And yeah, if there's potential for a second season, wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, but I'll give the rest of my thoughts when I've finished watching it. In fact, you know what? I'll probably reread The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina so I can give a more comparative look between the two different series.
Mm. Yeah, because like later on in the season, I felt like they were trying to do, because I think I remember you talking about it. I felt like they tried to do the spin off where it's the Archie zombie thing. I feel like there was certain elements on there where I think
Oh,
they
okay.
were trying to
Yeah.
tease like a zombie type of thing. And once again, it's not out of the ordinary like added in this show to do something like that where it's like a zombie type of thing.
Yeah,
it
witches, vampires, zombies is like the kind of horror tropes that exist within the world. It's not that surprising.
yeah. One thing I do need to harp on, because I'm just a crazy nut for this stuff, is that I feel like the show is pretty ugly. Like
Okay.
just in general, of like the color palette all the way to the things, because like even when you watch something like Riverdale, I feel like Riverdale has some pretty good colors going on. Like especially when you see Pop's Diner, it's got that neon pink and light blue. Like it has these colors and something about these characters and their uniforms, they pop. And I feel like with the Sabrina character designs of their costumes, as well as sometimes the scenery that they choose, is not really like iconic. Like like when I see Sabrina, I want to see like an iconic costume, I suppose, and like I think it is iconic with like it's kind of like the red dress type of thing with the white collar.
Hmm.
And I know like you've seen those characters where the three sisters have that collar, and it's very iconic type of things, but everyone else doesn't really have that iconic look to it. Even like
Hmm.
the sitcom of Sabrina, at least had like Harvey had the if I remember correctly, still had like the varsity jacket, and it's one of those like
Yeah,
good
sure.
those big signifiers. I feel like this show doesn't really do so much of those signifying things, where it feels pretty semi generic when it comes to its kind of like fantasy horror element. Um, yeah, and even like another thing when I hop on, it's really weird, is that I felt like it's not focused properly. And now I'm pretty sure whoever did the directing of this is a person who knows what they're doing when it comes to the camera. Like I'm pretty sure they went stupid and were like, I'm gonna not test the depths of field of the focus of the camera lens. But there's a lot of scenes in this show where it's focused like centrally in the middle with the characters, and the sides are very blurry. I noticed that, and it's kind of really distracting. I can maybe see what they're trying to do here, where they're just like, we want you to focus on these characters, or we want to like be like, is this a dream state or something like that? But like, I feel like it's just these scenes are chosen out of nowhere, and there's no real coherent reason why the camera has to be blurry at all. So like, that's kind of just a negative standpoint of just like how it looks. It just doesn't have that cool look to it. And I feel like it could have done so much more with its like I guess imagery. Even talking about adaptations to a fantasy thing that's a little bit like weird would be like something like American Gods, for example. It has like a like even if it's like kind of set more like obviously in normal times and there's not really much magic on display, it still has a good visual tone and style to it that like is off to a fantasy point. But this one, it just feels a little bit kind of bland in that respect. So hopefully, like I feel like Sabrina needs to get it's got its tone right, but it just needs its visual flavor right. So it's like this is a world, if that makes sense. Uh,
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah. I get you. I mean, look, in the end, this is their first, I guess, go at a series with Sabrina, and I guess like there was always the talk of, oh, maybe they're going too dark with how they're doing stuff. I think visually and once and this show is probably a success. Like I think hands down it's probably going to get a second season.
I think they already greenlit it for a second season. I think
Yeah.
it's I think it's like once you get to the third to fourth season, that's when the real test is. Because like even a Netflix standpoint, I don't think they really back anything past really a third season that much.
Hmm.
Like House of Cards seems to be the really only one, and of course like Stranger Things kind of has had gone through that. Even once again mentioning Stranger Things, Stranger Things has once again, as I was mentioning before, Stranger Things has a coherent visual tone to it, and like it's got that 80s style, but it also has like a specific style for the fantasy horror type of stuff. And I feel like Sabrina feels like it's kind of done in a semi low budget, where they didn't have to be like, let's visually change this and make it like Sabrina looking, or like really gothic looking. I feel like they can do so much more. Essentially, what I'm saying is hire Tim Burton as a consultant for visually doing stuff, and then
Yeah,
it'll
yeah.
be a lot cohesive.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think the other thing is though, I think Netflix kind of does this all the time, and I wonder if it's a tactic, and it's announcing a second season, while when the first season has gone out, because I feel like it seems like a pretty good tactic to get people to watch it. It's like, ooh, this show must be good if they've already greenlit a second season. I have to watch it now so I can be ready for the second season. I can imagine that being a pretty useful tactic to try and nab the odd user who's like kind of tangentially interested in a show to kind of tune in on something.
It's like, this is gonna be the talk of the town, so I need to catch up. Like, I
Exactly.
think they even did that with the movie Bright. I think they just like, it came out for like the first week. It made a lot of like views or whatever. So they're just like, yeah, we're greenlighting a second one, and then was like, okay, I gotta watch it now, and it kind of boosted the numbers even more.
Yeah, it's kind of like, you're double dipping in terms of like trying to get people's attention into a show. But hey, look, if it works, it works. But yeah, I guess we'll have to wait for my review once I manage to sit down and finish watching the series.
Yeah, and once again, like as mentioned before, it's each episode's about like 55 to like an hour each. So like they're not the standard like CW show where it's like 42 minutes, pretty simple stock. It's like very much like, no, these are like it deals with its subject matter, and it takes its time when it needs to take its time to actually do it, which I do respect along the lines of that. But like time consuming wise, it is can be like, you could kind of feel like the episodes a little bit longer than you're usually used to when it comes to TV.
Yeah, I definitely would agree with that.
Yeah. So yeah, that's actually going to be us for this week. Remember, you can always find us on our website on Libsyn. You can listen to us on Stitcher, Spotify, on iTunes, and we split it up on topic by topic on YouTube with the channel Marketing Movies. But until next time, Henry Cavill is, I guess, The Witcher, and he could still be our Superman. But until next time, see ya.
Gotcha.